University case. Counselor, good to see you.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
What perked up your ears from that interview?
Jennifer Weisselberg said it very well when she referred to the Trump organization as a mom and pop organization. That's not how we think of the Trumps. We think of it being this big, big organization, Fifth Avenue, New York City, the biggest, the best, whatever. That's the Trump facade. It was a very small operation, and it still is to this day. These things are run with a very small group of people who had minute control over every single thing.
What do you see as the analog, the analogy from what you learned with Trump University to what this larger investigation may look at?
Well, look, it's all going to come down to a lot of the financial records. For our case, it was a little bit different because a lot of the fraud was being done in these seminars, these supposed classes for Trump University. So for us to get our hands on the transcripts of those classes was a big deal. But getting the financial records was definitely a thing. Here, the misrepresentations that are at issue, the allegations of fraud that we think are going to emerge, were fraud made to lenders, saying that these buildings were worth so much, and then turning around and going to tax authorities and claiming that the same buildings were worth almost nothing or worth a lot less. And it's those misrepresentations, the numerical misrepresentations, are going to be the big issue here. So a lot of it comes down to the financial records. And Alan Weisselberg was very much personally the keeper of those records. It's not just that he ran a department. He personally was actually looking at every single penny that went in and out of that company.
So Michael Cohen, he wasn't involved in that as far as we know. He had nothing to do with the accounting. So unless he got his hands on those kinds of records, I don't know how he helps in that way. Weisselberg, what could she have in these personal documents that investigators wanted and got that could help them?
You never know. People email themselves documents at their home address. Both of Weisselberg's sons, including Barry, Jennifer's ex-husband, were personally involved with the Trump organization as well. Things get brought home. Discussions are made about things that are going on at work. She might have all sorts of information. She was part of that family for a very long time. And again, Alan Weisselberg is not just the accountant or something like that in the organization. He was Trump's right-hand man. That is really, 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 it cannot be emphasized enough.
You're not going to hang a case like this on Michael Cohen. What are you going to need?
No, you can't hang it on Michael Cohen. Michael Cohen only touched certain aspects when there was a certain payment that needed to be made to quiet someone down. Cohen was also involved with Trump University. There were certain students with Trump University that had raised enough of a ruckus that Cohen was dispatched to pay them off and get them to sign a release and basically to shut them up. Cohen had a very particular role within the organization, but it was pretty narrow. I'm sure he's helped open up a lot of factual doors for the prosecutors. I'm sure he's helping guide them through a lot of the documents. But at the end of the day, he's just one relatively small piece of the puzzle. The bigger kicker is that they can actually get Weisselberg implicated. And if he's implicated, they can get him to flip.
How easy is that? Or how hard is that?
Well, the kicker is that if you actually are the CFO and you're personally signing off on everything, Weisselberg signed every check. He reviewed every tax form. He reviewed, I'm sure he reviewed the pro formas that would have been sent to any of the banks to get these large loans when they were getting loans from Deutsche Bank and so forth that are going to be key at issue in this investigation. I think a really good analogy here is to Enron. Obviously, that was a while ago now, but for viewers who may remember it, obviously that was a huge, huge financial scandal. This could be that big. And in the Enron scandal, their CFO, Andy Fasto, was charged with fraud and conspiracy. He did cooperate with prosecutors. He still did 6 years in prison. But he did cooperate with prosecutors. He did flip. But the CFO in an organization that's committing rampant fraud, that CFO is almost certainly going to be personally implicated.
Now, look, this is heavily TBC, right? To be continued.
Oh, of course.
But we do know this. Weisselberg was heavily mentioned by Cohen in knowing everything that they did in the payoffs with the acquirer and all that stuff. And he escaped any scrutiny, supposedly working with them. What will he do this time? Because this is exponentially more important. Tristan Snell, thank you very much. Look back to having you back on when we learn more. Be well, and thank you for being here on a Friday night.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, back by popular demand. Ahead, a new installment of Right and Wrong. We have the man